ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Tonight's episode will be about the 9th Age Quickstarter. And I have decided on a name for these kinds of these kinds of episodes, in case I want to do other things in the future, so it won't be confused with those. So these kind of episodes will be called Painted Desk Ramblings, and this is then episode 2. The goal is, of course, to get some more painting done for all of us. Me while rambling into a microphone, and you while listening to that background noise. In the last episode, I spoke about the history of the 9th Age project, and I briefly mentioned the Quickstarter as a game that the 9th Age produces. Since then, but certainly unrelated to my video, there's been a lot of discussion on the forums where the Quickstarter has been brought up. The discussions are about the project and the community and how those are meant to grow in the future and in the long term. Many put forward the Quickstarter as a tool for this, which was dismissed by others, and this discussion made me realize that I too was quite dismissive of it. So I decided to take a closer look and talk a little about it. But before we get on to that, it's time to shine the hobby spotlight on what's on my desk tonight. And I'm continuing my adventures in sketching, this time working on a test model for my vermin swarm army. I'll take a picture now to share what it looks like, and I will post it up in the show. And the model is a attacking slave with spear by Dragonclaw Miniatures. You can find it in the link posted down below. I got it through their recent Kickstarter. It will probably end up as a slave in my army, but in the more short-term future I will use it in my skirmish warband, skirmish campaigns, which is a skirmish variant of the 9th Age, which is a game played as part of a you play it as part of a campaign where your models progressively get stronger. However, all that is a topic for another show, but I will provide a link to it down below if you are interested. This model, for now, I have only given a Zenithal highlight spray paint using the Games Workshop spray paints. I'd also like to introduce another segment that I want to try out, some news that is, where I will just let you know what is happening in the 9th Age since the last time, and what our supporting miniature companies are up to. Previously I haven't been following these kinds of things very closely, but I really get the feeling that this week was uncommonly eventful, with a lot of miniature companies announcing things. So for starters, we have 3 different Kickstarters. First one is from Krakon Games, who are doing a Kickstarter for the Evil Eye clan of Fomorian Raiders, which is a multi-part resin miniature release with some different bodies and replaceable heads, hands and tails. They are very similar to the old Games Workshop Femur, or whatever they are called, so one-eyed swamp dwelling things. The second Kickstarter is from Last Sword Miniatures, who are doing an undead Kickstarter for 32mm undead miniatures. It's called Undead: The Fallen County of Ampurias. They seem to go with a very strong feudal theme, so it's basically Undead Kingdom of Aquitaine. it looks quite cool in my opinion. And the third one, which is launching quite soon, is Yadharo Models, who are doing a Kickstarter for Dwarven Holds. So some neat miniatures for those two. I will provide links to all of these down below. In other news, Grimforge are having a pre-order discount available for their mercenary pikeman / crossbowman. So don't miss that out if you want some. And Shield Wolf Miniatures have just released a bunch of new terrain, which is looking really sweet. It's city terrain, and it's a really nice feel to it. I would also like to mention the recent update on the Painting League of 2019 that has been running on the 9th H site. Some really cool models there this in this update. A lot of Doom Lords, it seemed. So check that out. I will provide a link down below. So with that out of the way, it's time for the main topic, Kickstarter. So as I said last time, Kickstarter was released in April of 2017. Not long after that release, I myself tried it out with a friend. We wanted to introduce some of his friends to the hobby, to lure them in, so to speak. And we figured that the Kickstarter could be a good tool for that. We played, I think, 3 games in total, one evening, and really had a lot of fun with it. We mostly used the advanced rules because their model collections didn't really fit the pre-made armor lists of the basic rules. But it worked well. I know at least one of them proceeded to play some games of fantasy battles later. But I think overall the interest kind of died down, but that's mostly our own fault for not engaging them more. The Kickstarter worked really well for its purpose there. I do, however, recall that I was annoyed with how different it was from fantasy battles. Some tiny little differences here and there that made it a different game, sort of. Or, yeah, it made it a different game. It is a different game. And that meant you had to unlearn and relearn things. You took things for granted that weren't true, which left a bit of a sour taste. This was further complicated by the existence of these advanced and basic rules in the Kickstarter, which again were a little bit different, so it kind of made them into 2 separate games. So that it basically turned, instead of learning 1 game, fantasy battles, you had to learn 3 games, which were similar but not identical, and not to a large degree simplifications of each other, but not only, which was the problem. In early November of last year, though, a newer version of the Kickstarter was released, and I didn't pay much attention to it really, and judging by the discussions on the forum over the last week, I wasn't alone in this, which really is a shame, because, well, we all understand how important it is to bring new people into the hobby, to expand our community, and we all want to see it happen, but I think few of us, me included, are actually willing to take steps to make this happen. it's always someone else's responsibility, we feel. On the forums, I've seen the creators of the Quickstarter game engage in these discussions and patiently try to point out that the Quickstarter can be used for this, and people have responded with pretty much what I also felt, that it wasn't really that good for it because it was so much of a different game and all that. But they said that that may have been true in the past, but things have improved in this newer version. So, since I hadn't really checked that out previously, I decided to give it a go and compare it with the old versions, see if the annoying things had been fixed. The only problem was that I didn't really remember what those annoying little changes were, so I just compared everything and broke down what I found. I also compared it with fantasy battles to see what's different and all that. And this is what I found. I should also say that I'm ignoring, for the most part, the differences between the old Quickstarter and the new that are only logical, given that the whole fantasy battles as well has moved to a version 2.0 with quite a lot of changes, and the Quickstarter has mimicked a lot of those changes. So, what did I find? Redirecting charges was not a thing in the old Quickstarter, and I think this is one of the things that I got annoyed at when I tried it out. As an experienced player, you assume it's there, that you can redirect, but then you find out you can't, and yeah, you can sour a bit. But in the new Quickstarter, you can redirect charges pretty much exactly as you can in fantasy battles, and I think that's really good. A difference between Quickstarter, I should say, and fantasy battles is that when you successfully charge a fleeing unit in fantasy battles, you can perform a discipline test to make a pivot, and in Quickstarter, both old and new, you can perform the pivot automatically. And I don't really see the point of this difference. You could just as well add that small little discipline test. I think it would be good to keep the similarities, and I also think it could be good for the game to make discipline more important. But that's not really that relevant. The exact same thing is true for restraining pursuit. In Quickstarter, you can just choose to not pursue, while in fantasy battles you have to take a discipline test, and if you fail you have to pursue, even if you didn't want to. And again, I don't really see the point of having that difference. So I would prefer it if they remove it and make it the same. There's also no reforms in Quickstarter, which is logical, because you have fixed formations for all of your units, so you can't really reform. It makes sense, and that is a huge simplification, so that I approve of. For the most part, the units follow the same rules. It's just that you can't reform them, which makes things a whole lot easier. There's so instead of reforming, you can only do pivots, but there also are no swift reforms. So if you pivot, you can't move after that, and you can't shoot. But I guess this makes sense, since there are no rules for command groups at all in Quickstarter, and removing those is quite a big simplification. So I approve that. Now I'm just about finished with the sketching part of this little wormin. So I think I will take another picture of it to see how it's progressed, and then I will continue with the comparison. So just a second. It was really easy to do the sketching part of this model. It's a very simple sculpt, so it makes sense. But now I shall see how well it goes to color it. But moving on with the Kickstarter, in the Kickstarter there is no general 1-inch spacing rule. It's just gone, and I feel that is a good thing. To many, I think the 1-inch spacing rule is unnecessary even in fantasy battles. So it's just a good thing that it's not there, in my opinion. However, in the old Kickstarter there was a sort of reference to it in the fleeing rules. It didn't reference the actual rule, but it said that you had to abide it, basically. But that's gone now, so that's good. Miscast has been introduced in the new Kickstarter. It wasn't around previously, and it's a quite neat mechanic. Really simple. Basically, if you roll a triple on your casting dice, you suffer a miscast. So that's the same as fantasy battles, but instead of this complex chart, the results and all of that, if you get a miscast, you simply roll a d6, and there's a 50% chance that you simply forget the spell. Otherwise, you take 2 hits that wound on 4+ with armor penetration 10. So similar mechanics that are used in the miscast for fantasy battles, and similar wordings, but a whole lot simpler. So I think that's good. Next is post-combat reforms. Those have also been introduced in the new Kickstarter, and this of course makes it more similar to fantasy battles. And being a bit hypocritical, I don't really think it's a good idea, mainly because the rules seem quite complex. They take up a whole column of text in the rulebook. But I guess I can see its value. I just wish they were simplified in some way. Not sure how it could be done, but I think it would be really good. Next, and I said I wouldn't bring it up, but I think this is really important, so I'll do it anyway. And that is the in the old Kickstarter, just like in the old fantasy battles, you had a armor penetration value tied to your strength, and that is just completely removed in both games now. And I think that is a major improvement. When I introduced these new players to the game using Kickstarter, that was one of the rules they had most difficulty to understand. So I think it's a really, really good change. Yes. The character rules have seen quite a lot of change in the new Kickstarter. They are of course quite a lot simpler than fantasy battles. You can only join units with the exact same base size, which makes things a whole lot easier, so that's good. One thing I don't quite understand though is that in both the old and the new Kickstarter, when you join a character to a unit, it replaces one of the rank and file models. It doesn't push that model back to the back of the unit, it just deletes it. And I don't understand the purpose of that difference. It doesn't seem any simpler than moving it to the back. It's just an unnecessary difference in my opinion. But I might be missing something. Also, in the new Kickstarter, you can rearrange your character's position within the units. Previously you couldn't. So this is making it more similar to fantasy battles, which is good. It's not entirely identical though. I don't think the movement of the character within the unit counts in any way. But it's a small difference that doesn't really matter. Or it matters, but it's easy to. It doesn't have that big an impact, I think. Another strange thing about the new Kickstarter, though, is that if you have a single rank on the rank and file unit, the character can only be placed at the ends of this rank. It can't be placed anywhere in the middle. So it's a bit similar to the rules for mismatching bases in fantasy battles. But I don't see the point of that limitation. Could be a balance thing, maybe. But I don't see it. I wish it could just go wherever they wanted. There are also rules for how many characters can join a single unit, and I think that makes sense to have. Those could be good to introduce to fantasy battles as well. And well, I think that ends the basic rules of Kickstarter. Around 30 pages total, so quite short actually, and that's with introduction and cover and all of that. So really quite short. On these basic rules, I'd say there's some definite improvement from the previous version. Some minor things that I still would like to see changed to make it more similar to fantasy battles, but not that big things. These basic rules then are of course meant to be played with the pre-made army lists, which is a quite neat idea. You get all the rules for your army in a single sheet of paper, which is really nice, put plainly. And I think it's a good idea for the basic rules to keep. The advanced rules instead, they add more scenarios. In the basic rules, you have only a single scenario. You win if you control the center. Plain and simple. And in the advanced rules, you get some different types of scenarios with several points you have to control, or things like that. and that's good. Um, it also introduces army building, so instead of having these pre-made army lists, you have to pick and choose from a selection of units to build your army. I think, yeah, that's a good difference between them. And finally, the advanced rules introduces all the model rules, the common model rules that you use in these army lists. And I mentioned before that I felt that the advanced rules and the basic rules were a bit too different. It made for somewhat different games. Looking at this, the rules themselves are really quite similar. Use the same rules, just add some things with the advanced rules. But if you look at the unit profiles in the old Kickstarter, the new one doesn't have any unit profiles for the advanced rules yet. But in the old Kickstarter, these used the profiles were slightly different here and there, which was quite confusing. I think this was mostly due to the basic rules not having access to the model rules, so you ended up with cavalry without swift stride, for example. And it felt a bit weird, and you had to relearn things when you went from basic to advanced. So I think it would be a good idea to move all of the model rules into the basic rules, so that you can use the exact same model profiles in the basic and advanced rules, and then you use you can write down the model rules used by a faction on this single sheet of paper on the pre-made arm list for ease of reference, so that it's still really easy to use, but have them in the rule book in full and pick from those. I think that could be a great improvement. But I think that is about it for this episode. To round up, I think that there has been some definite improvement to the Kickstarter. It's a lot more similar to Fantasy Battles than it was. They still haven't released the advanced rules in full, and I hope that they do that, and I hope that they move the model rules into the basic rules, so that they can use the same profiles. Yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on Kickstarter. And I've gotten some color on this little slave vermin, so I will take a final picture, show you the results of this episode of Paint Desk Ramblings. Something like that. And that wraps this up. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.